seen a real willingness to step up to the cultural issues. A lot of churches don't. What would you say to those churches that are concerned about being on the wrong side of politics on these matters?
Well, I love what the Founding Fathers said about this, because back in their day, ministers were involved. Benjamin Rush, who's called the father of public schools under the Constitution, in 1789, when we had the Constitution ratified, he wrote the first education paper, 1790, on why we needed public schools. And he said public schools should teach all students three things. He said, first, they should teach students to love and serve God. He said, second, love and serve your country. And third, love and serve your family. Now, the order is that he put was God, country, and family. Today, we would go God, family, and country.
Right.
Why did he say country above family? Because he pointed out if you ever lose control of your government, it'll become the enemy of the family. If you don't stay involved in your government, and you look at all the family problems we have, they are passed through legislation and through judicial decisions that attack traditional values, attack parental rights, attack parental authority in schools, all the stuff that parents fight against, it's come through policy. It's because we decided we didn't want to be involved in government, so now we're fighting the results. Sam Adams made a great statement. He said, when everyone votes, he said, I hope they'll remember how significant it is, the impact it will have on their family when they go vote. If church doesn't get its head out of the sand and say, you know what, we're trying to clean up a community of problems that's created because we haven't been involved in government helping get good policy.
It seems like the secular left has been building the notion that they have the moral high ground. They're the people that care. They're the people that have compassion. They know what to do best with our money. Christians are intolerant. How do you stand up and tell our story, which is a really good story? What's the way to do that?
Well, there's several ways. You can do it statistically, you can do it historically, and you can do it through anecdotes right now. Right. One of the things I point to on the government taking care of the poor is right now, according to the American Institute of Philanthropy, if you give to any charitable organization, myself, my wife, we give to Wounded Warriors and Salvation Army and other groups, but they track every 501c3 in the country. And they say if you give $1 to that group and 60% does not reach the target, you should not give to that group. So they'll allow 40% to be used in overhead and fundraising and staff administration. Right now, every dollar that goes to the poor out of the U.S. government, only 30 cents out of the dollar reaches the poor. 70% stays in overhead. Now, if that was a charity, none of us would give to it. But if we would give the same, we've given $9 trillion through the government to the poor, and 70% has stayed in the government. It's never made it to the poor. If we gave that same $9 trillion to Catholic Relief Services, Jewish Relief Services, Lutheran Relief, if we let them take care of the poor, we'd have had this thing fixed a long time ago.
So this seems like a pretty convincing argument that government is awfully self-serving.
Government is very self-serving, and the bigger it gets, the more it has to serve itself, because the more it has to take to keep feeding itself. When you have, and the key really is if people will discipline themselves, and if they will do, there's 205 verses in the Bible that talk about taking care of the poor. Not a single one of them is directed to government. Every one of them is directed to individuals. Every one of them is directed at church. If the church and individuals would just look around for the poor and take care of themselves, there's nothing for the government to do. We've allowed the government to take it in, and we're not looking to take it back, and that's a real problem. If we don't start looking in our own neighborhoods and saying, who can I help in my neighborhood? If we don't get that aggressive, go out and find somebody mentality, government will keep taking it all away from us. Now, we got to go do a little bit of investigation, find out what they actually do, not what they say, then get that information to others, and then third, make sure we're registered, and fourth, make sure those around us are registered, then fifth, make sure everybody turns out in November.
It seems like an appropriate time to talk about where you got the name WallBuilders. Would you share that with our audience, please?
WallBuilders is it's the book of Nehemiah in the Bible, but it's the story of the largest grassroots effort that occurred in the Bible. Here's a nation that had been torn down. It was in disarray. It was in dishonor. It didn't have a good reputation. And the leader got the people together and say, hey, let's rebuild. If we rebuild, and so it's a call to rebuild. And what happened was when everybody did something, they got that whole nation turned around in a short period of time. The critics said, you'll never do it. Look how terrible it is. It's all bad. But yet when everybody did something, and that's our call, is everybody's got to go do something. You may not can run for president or senator or whatever. That's all right. Just talk to your neighbor beside you and get one person to think right. If everybody does something, the nation will turn around in a heartbeat. But if we'll sit back and say there's nothing I can do, then we're going to be in trouble.
Or leave it to the other guy.
Or leave it to the other guy. So WallBuilders is the name we take because I love that story in Nehemiah of ancient Israel, how they got rebuilt was everybody did something, and that's what we got to do.
David Barton, WallBuilders. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
That was fantastic.
Good.
Now, one thing that shocked me that you said tonight, and I've heard this, but it really sort of sunk in, was that only 50% of Christians are registered to vote.
Yeah.
And you also said that 14% thought they were registered, but they really weren't.
Right.
What can we do? What can churches do about that?
Well, there's a couple things. On websites, we have a website called JudeoChristianVoterGuide.com. You go there and download some apps.
Right.
And any church can do that. And any person in the church can go check and see if they're registered. Because we have the national database, 150 million voters, have the entire modern database with everything up to date.
Right.
And you can say, I need to check and see if my neighbor's registered. You can put his name in and see if he's registered. You can check people in your Sunday school class, your civics club, or your Lions club, or anything else. And so there are now apps that are out there to help you know. We also have a system now where that no matter what state you're in, which is amazing, you can register to vote online, and the Secretary of State will get you what you need. So it's a real easy process now. It's just, will people do it? So the apps are there, the tools are there. There's a lot of stuff available. Florida Family Council has 6 or 7 apps just specifically related at this, because 1 out of 7 conservative folks, 1 out of 7 folks of any kind, conservative otherwise, are going to get to the polls, try to vote, and they're going to say, well, your name's not on the list. Sorry, you can't vote. 14% think they're registered, and they're not.
So for our Florida residents, the Florida Family Council has the tools,
That's got the tools.
and the apps that can move
right.
us forward.